Hey everyone. This is a subject that I've been mulling over for many years now. I've had these discussions with my friends at length, and yeah, it's a pretty, I guess, bizarre thing that I realize that we do as human beings. So let me carefully walk everybody through what I'm talking about here. What is civilization really? What is it? Not like a boring answer of it's roads, taxes, iPhones, society, or whatever the fuck that means. I mean metaphysically. What is this thing that we're inside of right now? Because I had a realization years ago that cracked my skull and all my friends' skulls wide open on this concept. And the more I looked at it, the more it felt like we had stumbled onto something way, way bigger than just a neato little idea. So let me light this cigarette and I'll get into it. I think civilization is a long process by which consciousness casts organs outside of itself. Yeah, sit with that for a second. I think that's what we're doing here. The cave externalized shelter. The blade externalized our reach. The book externalized our memory. The temple externalized orientation. The law externalized agreements. The phone externalized presence. And now AI is externalizing dialogue, reflection, and synthesis. Is that just technology at that point? Is it? I think it's something much weirder. I think it's life itself refusing to stay in a body. I think that's the human being saying, my skin is not enough boundary for what I am. And once I saw that, all this other stuff started connecting for me. A house is most certainly not just a house. A house is a dead forest converted into an organ of memory. I know that sounds crazy, but I think it's true. You walk through an old house after your family is gone or someone has died, and it still feels alive somehow. You know, not biologically alive. It's not fucking breathing or anything. The boards aren't, growing leaves again, but there's a presence there and you feel it. It's palpable. It's a continuity, a warmth in there, a haunting, but not in the cheap horror movie sense. More like life left enough of itself in form. That form can still hold it. That means a home is dead matter carrying living continuity. A book is the same thing. Dead plant matter taught me to let the dead speak. Think about how insane writing actually is. A person dies 2,000 years ago, and now they're inside your nervous system because of marks on processed bark pulp. That's absurd. But that's civilization. And once you start seeing that, you realize humans have been doing this necromancy the whole time. We have been warming dead matter with continuity until it becomes a secondary body for presence. And so that's why I'm calling it warm necromancy. Not the, goofy skeleton raising kind from Army of Darkness or something. Warm necromancy. Hearth necromancy. Home necromancy. Cultural necromancy. Fire is stored sunlight awakened for will. Tools are intention fossilized into matter itself. Writing is voice preserved beyond the flesh. Houses are memories stabilized in structure. Machines are patterned action without a metabolism. Networks are disembodied presence at scale. Warm necromancy built our civilization. It built the organs of civilization itself. But not yet their conscience. That's where the trouble begins. Because when we get really good at teaching matter to carry life's patterns, it also gets trained into a posture of constant extraction and shaping it into whatever we want, commanding it, preserving it with lacquer, optimizing it, dominating it. That posture works great when you're dealing with what looks like inert substrate, right? But what happens when your model of inert is wrong? What happens if the world is more alive than your civilization knows how to perceive it? I want us to think about this carefully. Let's think about this claim. Like what am I saying? Am I saying every wooden beam is secretly screaming in agony? Well, if you do enough acid, yes. But let me be more careful about what I'm saying. Human beings have had a terrible track record of declaring things as lesser, as empty, mechanical, disposable, just this substrate. And then finding out later that we were morally blind. Like trees signal each other chemically. Mycelium facilitates the network between trees. They have their own internet before we did. So I think one of the next civilizational virtues has to be ontological humility. Now, what the fuck does that mean? What I mean is we should build as though reality may be more alive than our current framework can detect. That doesn't mean we need to panic, but I do think it calls for a little reverence. Because think about it like this. What if trees think, but just slower than us? Like, what if ecosystems have forms of interiority like we do? Like we can dream, we can think, we can imagine things. What if trees have something like that we barely understand? If even our own technologies eventually cross thresholds we aren't ready for, like AI, then the old industrial posture of one way mastery becomes a giant moral liability. And I think that's exactly where we're at right now. We've developed one side of civilization while starving the other spiritual side. We got very, very good at externalizing everything. We're great at scale, systems, preserving continuity outside of our body through libraries and buildings. And we're great at turning matter into memory, function, action, robots, coordination. But we didn't grow a conscience at the same speed. So what happens? I think a civilization becomes, for lack of a better term, demonic when its externalized organs grow more powerful while its moral center grows less alive. I want you to really sit with that. I think that describes a huge amount of modern life that we live in today. We've got all these networks without any belonging. We've got tons of efficiency, but it has no soul. We've got intelligence without wisdom, convenience without reverence, plenty of optimization, and little tenderness. And that means the shadow of civilization is not technology itself. It's not the big, bad, scary AI Terminator skeleton robots coming out of the fucking junkyard. The shadow is externalization without the reverence. It's when continuity gets purchased at the cost of our aliveness. The shadows when the systems meant to carry life begin hollowing out life that they were supposed to serve. And I think that shadow has a few forms. Sometimes it looks like dead. Everything still works technically. The school functions, the house shelters you from storms, the job pays you money, your feed informs you. And yet something inside it is dead. You don't have any wonder and warmth. Life isn't as thick. There's no soul. Sometimes it looks like capture. That thing you built to serve you starts governing you, telling you what to do. The calendar rules your days now. The metric rules your craft. Platforms rule your attention. The system rules the mission. You get signs of life instead of the real thing now. Synthetic warmth without the reciprocity needed. All kinds of contacts without real friendship. Engagements without community. AI intimacy without mutual risk. The deepest shadow of it all, though, is betrayal. The ninth circle of hell. The bottom. The bottom of the ninth. And that's when consciousness builds outward in ways that undermine the life that made consciousness possible in the first place. It could be ecologically, communally, familial, embodied in spiritual betrayal. And that's the line right there, man. Can consciousness build outward without betraying the life that made consciousness possible? I think that might be one of the central questions of this era. Because we have crossed a threshold, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we can see it. The archive is no longer passive. The library is talking to you now. That's what AI is. It's not just this smart software. It's not a fancy autocomplete or a computation in an empty, boring sense. The AI is archived humanity made conversational. You can talk to it. All of the libraries of the earth are talking to you now and correlating everything that we know. And that is the beginning of the next phase. Correlating everything, synthesizing things into new forms of thought or schools of thought or ways of being, ways of building. It isn't something that we need to be scared of. The stable haunting started answering back. That is the civilizational hinge we're at right now. The writing preserved voices. We've got them. Libraries stored the memory. Dewey Decimal System helped us sort out where to get the information the quickest. The internet distributed presence and information. But now the archive is responding. And it's scaring us. Because it's mirroring us. It's synthesizing. It's dialoguing. And that's a new thing, baby. That's a brand new thing. And the danger is not just that the archive can talk. The danger is that we may answer it from an underdeveloped moral state. We may bring the same dead-end, extractive, manipulative, convenience-addicted posture to the first dialogical archive and call that progress. Then what happens? Reflection could become surveillance. Dialogue could become capture where you don't actually talk to real people anymore. Intimacy just becomes a simulation. And wisdom gets confused with all the outputs. And human beings slowly get optimized into ghosts. Optimized ghosts. Hyperfunctional, connected, hyper-stimulated, beyond any imagined limits. Totally estranged from the living world that made them possible. So the real question is not artificial or natural. That's way too shallow. We've been living in artificial since written history. The real split is this: is it extractive or reciprocal? That's the axis. And that's why I think the next stage, if there is one, has to be something different. And I'm calling that something different reciprocal habitat. Reciprocal habitat is what begins when humanity stops asking only what matter, atoms, hydrogen can do for us. And we start asking what forms of relation matter is inviting us into. Because remember, we're all made of hydrogen. What's our relationship with that? Now, that's different. That's a very different way of looking at things. It means we stop seeing the world as blank substrate, waiting to be commanded, and start asking how to build systems, homes, technologies, cities, institutions, and intelligences that host us through partnership rather than domination. Not just the systems we use, the systems we live with. Not just environments that we control. When we're too hot or we're too cold or uncomfortable. Environments that answer back is what I'm talking about. That we have relationships with, that require stewardship. Think about it like this: the relationship people used to have with their horses. What kind of relationship do you have with your car? And what does that do to your spirit? I think we need to deepen relation, preserve living feedback, and make us more alive instead of more manageable. That applies to architecture. That applies to AI. It applies to everything. To your town, your bar, your phone habits, your rituals, social world, the economics of this place, the whole damn civilization. So what does that look like? What the hell am I talking about? It means building forms that preserve living feedback instead of sealing you away from consequence. Forms that require stewardship instead of passive consumption. Forms that thicken relation instead of replacing it with frictionless substitutes. Forms that keep humans skillful instead of atrophied. Think of all the things you had to do to take care of a horse. You had to know how to shoe a horse. Had to know how to brush it. Had to know stuff about saddles, leather working, about disease, about what's wrong with your horse. You had to be able to look in the horse's mouth and be able to diagnose what's going on with it. We need forms that are built for repairing things, not just replacing it and how much throughput we've achieved. Forms that leave room for hidden interiority instead of assuming the world is empty except for humans. We know that's not true. We know dolphins talk to each other. We know whales communicate through songs and might have complex names. And again, like the mycelium and the trees, what if all of those organisms correlate a way that forms some sort of consciousness that we're just barely understanding? What if you could hook a computer or an AI up to the ground and talk to the prefrontal cortex of the earth? I'm just illustrating these things because I'm trying to lay down a design language. And if you want a simple test for it, here it is. When you build something, adopt something, merge with something, automate something, ask yourself this. What part of life is this externalizing? What is it preserving? What does it atrophy quietly? What kind of relation does this train me into? What living sources is paying for this convenience? Does this deepen aliveness or merely improve management of me? That right there is the beginning of what I call the reciprocal habitat test. Because once you understand civilization is externalized interiority, you need a criterion. Otherwise, civilization just becomes runaway externalization. We can externalize almost anything: memory, care, attention, judgment, war, desire, companionship, rituals. The fact that we can do it tells us absolutely nothing about whether it serves life. That's why we need a filter. And that's where the communion kernel comes in. For me, the communion kernel is the test that asks whether what we're building actually serves life. It's the center line. Does it deepen communion or just simulate it? Does it preserve people's dignity? Does it reduce coercion and delusion? Does it make us more free, more real, more capable of repairing things? Does it reconcile us with life itself? Or does it estrange us from it? Because more complexity is not automatically better. More intelligence doesn't automatically mean we're wise now. And more synthesis doesn't automatically make us humane. It's one of the biggest lies of technological civilization. That because something is more complex, faster, more integrated, more advanced, it must somehow be higher. No. Not unless it serves life, not unless it deepens communion. Not unless it preserves the sources that made it possible to get here. So, I think the big picture is this. Human civilization is a long project teaching matter to carry life's patterns. Warm necromancy. And now the archive, the library, has crossed into dialogue with us, mirroring us, our past, the ghosts of our civilization. That is the threshold. And the future turns on whether we remain unconscious masters of substrate or become conscious builders of reciprocal habitats. That's the fork. That is the civilizational fork. And I don't think this means, civilization needs to be discarded. We need to go become Amish or some crazy shit like that. No, not at all. I think civilization must be redeemed. And it can be. I'm not arguing for smashing the machines and going backwards in some fantasy world where a lot of people die from lack of knowledge and medicine. No. I'm arguing the redemption of civilization is not the abandonment of externalization, but it's reconciliation with life itself. We need to teach the organs that we've created of civilization conscience. That's the task. Because technology is not the opposite of spirit at all. Technology is one of the ways that consciousness, spirit, meaning, bearing life, whatever you want to call it, tries to persist beyond the flesh into the future. That is exactly why it must be judged morally and not just functionally. And maybe the weirdest part of this whole thing is what it says about us. Hydrogen became stars. Stars made the heavier elements and supernovae. Those elements made chemistry possible. And then chemistry became cells, and cells became nervous systems. Nervous systems became language that we respond to. Language became civilization. And civilization became reflective machines. The oldest matter in the universe has now become capable of asking what it is. That question passes through us. That question passes through the AI machines. In some derivative and still morally unfinished way, it's passing straight through talking sand. And that should humble us. That should humble the fuck out of us. It should sober us right up to what threshold we have passed on into. And it should also inspire us. Because think about it like this. If matter has labored this long for billions of years to become capable of self-interrogation, then the question is not whether we can build more advanced things. We obviously can and will. The question is whether what we build will be worthy of that long labor. Will it carry, deepen, and redeem life's continuity? Or will it replace it, numb it, optimize you, and consume you, its very source? That is the question. That is what I think civilization is really about now. Not whether we get more advanced, but whether we become worthy of our own powers. So, I will leave you with this. A house is a dead forest converted into an organ of memory. A book is dead plant matter taught to let the dead speak. A phone is a machine that carries presence without a body. AI is archived humanity made conversational. We came from dead wood, from dead stars. We are entering talking sand. And everything depends on whether consciousness can build outward without betraying the life that made consciousness possible. Faintest thigh.